Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I will show you how to crochet the Marshmallow Lace Cowl. This is a super squishy, luxurious, and fun to crochet cowl. And it has a V-stitch cowl part. And then it's topped off with this big, beautiful blossom that I've done in a darker purple, a lighter purple, and we've topped it off with a pretty fabric covered button. For this project, you'll need 1 skein of super bulky yarn for the cowl. I used the full skein. This happens to be Wool Ease Thick and Quick in the Fisherman. And I also used some yarn leftovers I had for the flower. This is the Hometown USA, both of these, Lion Brand's Hometown USA. And I have a lighter purple and I have a darker purple here. And I just used some leftovers I had on hand. You'll also need a button. I used a fabric covered button, and I actually made this button. There's a video for that of how to make a fabric covered button. If you don't want to make your own button, however, you can use another button. This is a wood button for a different look. You'll also need an N crochet hook to make the cowl part and this middle flower part and this top flower center part. And you'll also need a P crochet hook to make this bottom larger flower. If you don't have a P crochet hook, you can simply omit this bottom flower and just make that part. Likewise, you could also just put one of the flowers on your cowl. So it's customizable however you want it to look. I went for the big, giant, bold flower. I thought it looked very pretty. You'll also need a tapestry needle and a pair of scissors to finish your cowl and seam everything together. I wanted to mention too that this finished cowl has a circumference of 24 inches and a width, the flower has a width of 5 inches and has a height, the cowl has a height of about 6 inches as well. So let's get started. So we're going to begin our cowl by making a starting chain of 49. We're going to put a slip knot on our hook. To make a slip knot, wrap the yarn around your fingers, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your crochet hook and pull up. Just tighten it on your hook, and we're going to make a starting chain of 49. To make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and pull it through the loop. That's your first chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 46, 47, 48, and 49. And I just wanted to mention that the barley colorway it's very tweedy and has these little pieces, and sometimes they can fall out, and that's okay. That's part of what makes the yarn so pretty. If you're having a lot of shedding with any yarn, not just this yarn, you can, as long as it's machine washable, that'll take care of a lot of those extra things that fall off. So let's begin the foundation row. We have our starting chain of 49, and I wanted to mention to make your starting chain pretty loose, because if it's too tight, it'll draw up the one side. So you can see our starting chain is pretty long, and what we're essentially doing is, I'll go back to the cowl from the beginning of the video. What we're essentially doing, I've unseamed it. When I showed it to you before, it was seamed, but I went ahead and unseamed it just to show you. It's a very long rectangle, and then what we'll do is we'll seam it at the end. So we're just going to make a long rectangle, and let's go back to our other cowl that we're working on. So we're going to begin the foundation row, and if your chain is too tight, if it's seeming like it's too tight, just go up a hook size or two, and that'll help you get your starting chain nice and loose. Okay, so to begin our foundation row, we're going to work our first, if we come back to our V stitch, we're going to work our first V in the 4th chain from the hook. This loop here does not count. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in this chain right here, we're going to work our first V by making a double crochet. To make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Have some more yarn shedding. Then we're going to make a chain 1 and then another double crochet, all in the same chain. Just like that. And that will make our first V. You can see it right there. We're going to skip 2 chains, 1 and 2, and in the next chain, we're going to do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So now we have our second V. We're going to do this, keep doing the same thing all the way across. Skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and in the next chain, work the next V. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Keep doing this all the way across. Skip 2 chains, 1, 2, in the next chain, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. We have a few V's now across. Pull some more yarn out of our yarn ball. Skip 2 more chains, 1, 2, in the next chain, double crochet. Whoops. Can back it up a little. There we go. Double crochet. Well, my yarn doesn't want to stay on my hook. There we go. Chain 1, double crochet. So we're just going to keep going in this manner. Skip 2 chains, in the next chain work another V, and we'll do this all the way across to the very end of the row. Skip 2 in the next chain, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. This is a really easy stitch. All you need to know to do this entire project is a chain and a double crochet, and that's it. Okay, so this is what we have so far, and we're just going to keep going. This is the rest of our starting chain. So skip 2 chains in the next chain, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So I'm going to keep going with mine, and we'll rejoin at the end of the row. So we're coming up to the end of the row, and we're just going to finish up the row the same way. Skip 2 chains, and in that very last chain, we'll work our very last V. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So our foundation row is complete, and it'll look kind of like this. A nice row of V's all the way across. So to go on to the next row, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work, just like that. Then in each one of these V's, like this, all the way across, we're going to work a V on top of the V, so it'll have a stacked effect. Now if we go back to our other cowl, we can see how these V's, there's one, how they're kind of stacked on top of one another. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing double crochet, chain 1, double crochet into the center of each one of these V's. Okay, so double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, pull some more yarn out. And as you can see, these V's are now stacked. Okay, the next V will do the same thing. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, just like that. Next V, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Okay, so you're just going to keep doing this all the way across into each V, all the way across. So to finish up our row, we've come to the very last V on our row. So we're just going to work a V into that V, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So we've come to the very end, and then we have here the turning chain from the previous row. Right into that space, we're going to work 1 double crochet. So our row is complete. So you're just going to keep repeating the row we just did over and over and over until you get the desired height. Let's go back to this one. I worked 6 rows to get the desired height of 6 inches. So you can keep going if you want it to be taller than the one I have shown, or if you want it to be a little skinnier, just work less rows. I used about a skein of the Wool Ease Thick and Quick, and I just wanted to make you aware to check the yardage. Sometimes they have varying yardages, but I used a full skein of the Wool Ease Thick and Quick in the solids. So you might get a little more, a little less with some of the other prints or tweeds. And to finish up your cowl, we can get this one aside. You're going to fasten off, and then you want to give yourself, before cutting the yarn, you want to give yourself a decently long tail, because you're, instead of using another piece of yarn, we're going to use the tail to seam up our cowl. So you have another tail from when you began, and you're just going to sandwich these two together. We can zoom out a little. There we go. Okay, now I used a tapestry needle, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to seam up your cowl. One way is to use a crochet hook and just slip stitch it all the way across. The other method is to use a tapestry needle and whip stitch it all the way across. Okay, so let me show you the slip stitch method first, and then I'll show you the whip stitch. Okay, so we've sandwiched our edges together, and this is going to be our working yarn. We fastened off. I'm going to put a knot in there. So you're going to insert your hook into the first loop, and again into the other first loop of the other edge. Okay, so just all through all edges, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on there. And then you're going to take your yarn, you're just going to wrap it around the hook and pull it through all the loops. You'll have a loop on your hook, just like that. Okay, then you're going to take your hook and insert it into the next loop. Because we're working along the side, it can be a little tricky. Just try to find the loops the best you can. So we put it through all the loops, the next stitch down, and pull it through all the loops. Then you'll have 2 loops on your hook. pull that loop that you just made through the loop that's already on your hook. And that's how you slip stitch seam. Now here we have a big hole created from the V, so you can just go right into that space, both sides, pull it through, and then work the slip stitch like we just did. Just keep doing this all the way across. When you're working, when you seam sides like this versus the top, sometimes it can be a little tricky trying to find the loops and keep everything nice and straight. But you're just gonna try to make it as neat as possible. And you'll just do this all the way across. I'm just gonna stop here so I can show you. But you'll do this all the way to the end. And then when you open it up, you'll have a nice, neat seam. Okay? So, next thing I want to do is show you how to do the whip stitch. So we're going to put our crochet hook aside. Then we're going to thread our tapestry needle. Now this is very thick yarn, so you can give it a little twist and guide it through. If you're having trouble threading your needle, please watch my video on how to use a needle threader. It's an extremely handy tool that'll help you thread your needle. If you're having trouble getting it through or having trouble seeing the eye of the needle, sometimes they're kind of small or your yarn is extremely thick like this. So again, we're just going to sandwich the two pieces together and then take our working yarn and then just do the same thing. Come through the loops. We're using a tapestry needle instead of the hook. So the whip stitch really is just a spiral through the edge of a piece of crochet or knitting or sewing. So we're just going all the way across our seam, just like that. This makes a nice, tight, sturdy stitch. Nice seam. And you want to check yourself along the way, make sure everything's still lined up nice and neat. And I know it's tempting when you finish a project to hurry up and do the finish work, but I want to encourage you to just take the time and make sure your finish work is nice and neat and looks pretty, because it makes a huge difference after you've spent all this time working on your project and crocheting it and making sure all your crochet stitches are perfect. So to make sure your finish work really shows off your project as well. So we're just coming down the edge here with our whip stitch, almost to the end. And again, if you prefer to just crochet the pieces together when you're done or do it this way, it's completely up to you. It's a total personal preference, and they both make a great seam. Okay, so here we are at the end. I'm just going to get one more little stitch in there. So I have two ends. Put our tapestry needle aside. I'm just going to tie them together. Make a nice secure knot. I like to do lots of knots, but I tend to overdo my knots. So then we have two ends. So we're going to take our tapestry needle once again. That makes a nice sturdy seam. And again, this is going to be the inside of the cowl. We're going to turn it out. So let's thread our tapestry needle and weave in the ends. So what I like to do, just thread it with a tail, then come down your seam in one direction. Again, this seam is very snug, so I need to wiggle it a little to work it in there. Okay, so come in one direction and then come in the other. This will help to keep your ends from popping out. And it's not completely foolproof, but it certainly helps. Then you're going to just give it a little tug, cut the end, and then we'll repeat what we just did for the other tail. Just thread your needle, And then just work it through. Pull it in one direction, give it a tug, pull it in the other direction. Then you can take your scissors, give it a little trim. And I like to just kind of straighten my seam out. So that's what it's going to look like. And then you're going to turn it out. And your cowl is complete. When you're finished your cowl, you can begin the flowers. Again, we're going to use 2 different colors of the same super bulky yarn. You'll need your button and a P hook and an N hook. So let's get started. We're going to begin our first and larger bottom flower with the darker yarn. Again, choose any colors you like for this project. But I'm going to do the darker purple with the larger hook, and then I'll do the lighter purple with the smaller hook. So to begin, we'll put a slip knot on our hook and chain 4, 2, 3, and 4. In the chain farthest from our hook, we're going to work a slip stitch. Insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and now we have a ring. Then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Get a little bit more yarn. And then work 11 double crochets into the center of the ring. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. We're going to close our round by working a slip stitch into our starting chain here. We worked a chain 3 at the beginning of the round. So just insert your hook and join to close. To begin the next round of our flower, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in this first space right here, that we come to, we're going to work 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then a slip stitch, all in the same space, just like that. That's our first petal. We're going to skip the next space that we come to, and then in the space after that, we're going to work 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then a slip stitch, all in the same space. So we have our next petal. Skip the next space. In the space after that, do the same thing. 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch, skip the next space. In the space after that, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and then a slip stitch, Our flower is coming together nicely. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. Skip the next space. In the space after that, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Work a slip stitch. Skip the next space. In the space after that, work 3 double crochets again. 1, 2, and 3, and work a slip stitch. So we now have 6 petals on our flower. So to finish our flower, we're just going to fasten off with another slip stitch into this next space here, just to round off that petal. Then join your round with a slip stitch. That'll finish off your flower. So that is what our flower looks like. And you can take your scissors, cut the yarn, and fasten off. And your flower is complete. Let's make our top flower. We're going to get the lighter yarn. We'll put our flower over here. We'll put our P hook down, grab our N hook and the lighter yarn, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to put a slip stitch on our hook. We're going to work the same exact pattern, but with the N hook and the lighter yarn. So chain 4 in the farthest chain from the hook, work a slip stitch to make a ring. Again, this is the same pattern. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then work 11 double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, get some more yarn, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, we're going to join to close our round with a slip stitch again. And then we're going to move on to the next round. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. In this first space that you come to, work 2 double crochets. We're making our first petal. I'm going through this flower a little quicker than this flower because again, it's the same flower. We're just working it with a different sized hook. Okay, so we worked 2 double crochets, then a slip stitch, skip the next space. In the space after that, work 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, work a slip stitch. We have 2 petals, skip the next space. In the space after that, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, work a slip stitch. We have 3 petals. Skip the next space. In the space after that, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Slip stitch, all in the same space. Skip the next space. In the space after that, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Work a slip stitch, all in the same space. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. Skip the next space. In the space after that, work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Work a slip stitch, all in the same space. In the next space, work a slip stitch. Just going to finish off our petal, round off the round, and then you want to join to close again with a slip stitch. So we have our flower. It's looking very pretty, so we can cut the yarn, go ahead and fasten it off. And that's what our flower looks like. Now it's time to put our cowl together. So our cowl is slowly coming together. We now have the bottom, the top, and then we're going to make a flower center. With your end hook, take the yarn color that's on the bottom, put a slip knot on our hook. Then we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Join again in the farthest chain from the hook, and then bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Next, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to work 11 double crochets into the center of the ring. If you notice, this is round 1 of our flower. We're going to just work round 1 of the flower and not the petals, and that will make the center of our flower. So that's 2, 3, get some more yarn, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Then we're going to join with a slip stitch to close our round. Just like that. Okay, take your scissors, break the yarn, and fasten off. Okay, let's get here's our circle. Let's get our cowl put together. So we have let's figure out where we have a seam. So we want the seam to be on the back and our flowers to be on the front of our cowl. We can zoom out a little. There we go. So let's get all the components together. We have our cowl. Push all this aside. Our finished cowl. We have our bottom flower, which we can put here. Actually, let's put it over here. We have our bottom flower. We have our middle flower. And what I like to do, instead of lining up the petals, because you can't see them as well, I like to give it a little turn so that it's more visible. Then we have our middle flower. Then we have our flower center. Then we have our button. So it's going to kind of look like that. It's going to be a big, beautiful blossom. Okay, so now that we know how it's going to be laid out, let's start working from the bottom up. Okay, grab a tapestry needle and you're going to flip your flower over, and this center end that you have, you can just trim that off, just like that. And then you can take your tapestry needle, and what you're going to do, your end is going to be off to the side like this. So you're just going to thread your tapestry needle, and you want to bring this end to the middle so that you can sew it. You don't want it to be sticking out the side. Now, sometimes when you make flowers, in between your petals, you'll have like a little bit of a gap. So when you go to weave your ends, pick up one of the sides of one petal, pick up one of the sides of the other petal when you're weaving in, and pull them together. And what that will do, there we go, I didn't have it lined up. There we go. So what that will do is pull everything together. See how it got those petals back together? And then it looks much better, okay? So then what you can do is bring your tail, weave it towards the middle of your flower. Just like that. Bulky yarn sometimes is a little fiddly with weaving in ends because it's so thick. Okay, so now we have our flower where we want it to go, and then we just have our tail, and we're just going to go right in where we want it, all the way through. So let's flip the cowl inside out and just reach in through the holes, pick up some purple, come up through the white. You're just going to do that a couple of times. When you're sewing things on to other things, a few well-placed stitches is all you need. You don't want to go too crazy, but you need enough to make it not be all floppy either. You want it to be nice and secure. So you can go back and flip it over and kind of check it. That's a little bit floppy. So let's keep going. Sewing it on. See, we're just coming in the purple, coming through the white. And our yarn is very, very bulky. So you're gonna have to give it an extra tug. There we go. Okay, so let's check our flower again. It's getting there, okay? So then what we can do is fasten this off. We're gonna knot everything and tie it all together when we're finished. Okay, so our flower is on there. Now if you just like that look, you can go with that. We are gonna go ahead and do the next layer. So again, you want to thread your tapestry needle, flip your flower over, and if you need to close that gap up a little bit, you can. Bring your end to the center, so you can go ahead and sew that on. Find your placement. Again, I like my petals to be a little staggered. Then go ahead and lift that up, come through the flower, just like that. You can flip it over, and then we're just going to do the same thing. Just going to get it sewn on there, but we're going through all the layers this time to get our big, beautiful bloom onto our cowl. Okay. You might have to go back and kind of spot check your work a little bit. So just go around, get everything nice and secure and tacked down. Okay, just go around the circumference of the flower. You can flip it over and kind of check your work a little bit. And just take your time with this. Make sure you get it all on there nice and snug. These bulky yarn projects make great gifts. This is a great way to use extra yarn. These flowers, I had some yarn from some other projects on hand. Okay, we're just straightening out our flower a little bit here. Okay. We're going to go sew this other side here. Okay, so we can just leave that tail because we're going to just tie everything on. So you can flip it back over and check your progress. Make sure everything is nice and straight and flat and looks nice. Okay, now we're ready for our flower's center. So pull that center tail, trim it, and then just do the same thing. Bring that other tail to the center of your flower. And you're ready to sew it on. You might need to straighten it out a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, I'll just come right in. And I mentioned this before, but you can put as many of these layers as you want. You don't have to have the entire 3-layer bloom on your flower. You can just do one flower. You can do the whole entire thing. It's totally up to you. Okay, we're going to get everything straightened out in just a second. Okay, we're just sewing this right on to the top. If you need to kind of straighten anything out, you can kind of do that at this point. Okay, then go back down. There we go. Okay, so once it's all sewn, we're going to get it all straightened out, and then we're going to add our little button. So our big, beautiful bloom is on our cowl. So if you want to, you can leave it like this, or I wanted to put a little button just to finish it off. My yarn is splitting, so if that happens, you can just give your yarn a fresh cut. The bulky plies come together sometimes. So just thread your tapestry needle and then place your button. I thought it finished it off nicely. This particular button I made, there's a video for this. It's a fabric covered button. And if you want to make your own, there's a video how to make fabric covered buttons. Or you can use a button that you have, that's fine. But I thought that this background, this kind of pinkish off-white, matched this, and there's a pink flower, and there's some purple. I just thought it looked really pretty with this particular flower. So what you're going to do is you can come up from the back and sew it on, or you can do it this way. Take your button, run the yarn through the button, because we're going through all these layers. Just like that. Now, when your button's still on the yarn, go straight through the center of your flower. We're going through 4 layers here. So we have a lot of layers. So just try and pull it through the best you can. Might be a little cumbersome. Get it nice and straight. Then you can pull your needle out, rethread it on the other strand. Actually, we're going to switch. We'll switch to a larger tapestry needle so we can get it through all those layers. You want a really sturdy tapestry needle for this. And then we're going to take our other tail and go straight in the same way we did before. Just pull it all the way through, just like that. Now you can flip it over. Now we have a bunch of tails on the back. So what we're going to do, these are our 2 from the button. We're just going to tie that on nice and secure. Check our work to make sure we're not pulling things too tightly. You can just tie all of this together and then take your tapestry needle and go ahead and weave all those ends. I'll show you how to weave one of them, but you'll want to go through and do the rest to get that nice and neat. Okay, just thread your tapestry needle, run it in one direction, run it in the other direction, and then fasten off with, cut it with your scissors, okay? Then you'll repeat that for the rest of your tails. So our marshmallow lace cowl is complete. It has a lacy cowl topped off by a big, beautiful, fancy bloom. This is a very fun and luxurious cowl. It makes a lovely gift and is a great way to use your extra yarn scraps. So that is how you crochet the Marshmallow Lace Cowl. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the red subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.